So you see loads of people doing like top 10 lists and all, but I'm not going to do that. Instead, out of all the hundreds of thousands of films that I love, I'm going to pick 5 each month and just talk about them. They're not in any specific order, although the first one I talk about is my favourite film of all time. Welcome to Crooksy Reviews. So, to start off my new thing each month, the first film I'm going to talk about is The Crow. Yes, I have like this part of my forearm tattooed. It's all to do with The Crow. I even have the signature from The Crow's creator, James O'Barr, tattooed on my arm because I met him at a Belfast Comic Con convention one year. So yeah, I think it is my favourite film of all time. Not even just because I think it's a great movie, but the story behind it is so tragic that it just adds a lot to it. The same as the comic book. I think it's fucking class. Like, the whole style of it is so gritty, and the guy, James O'Barr, he drew and inked everything himself, and then it was reprinted from that. But I'm not going to get into the whole story about why The Crow is there. If you want to know the story of how The Crow became what it was, it's very easy to find. But although it is my favourite film of like all time, I do think it does need a remake, and a lot of people are going to disagree with me on that because it's such a great film, and it was the last film Brandon Lee was ever in because he was shot on set accidentally. The movie doesn't really follow the comic book that well in the story aspect, but I can also see why they did change a lot for the movie because I don't think the comic could transition onto the film so well, but I would love to see a remake of them trying to do the story from the comic, which was the guy wasn't a musician, he was a mechanic. He was the guy who suffered in intensive care for like 38 hours after watching his girlfriend being brutally raped and murdered in front of him on the highway after their car broke down and shit, and the Crow like kind of talking to him and get the skeleton cowboy and shit, like, and all the metaphors and all. Like, they could do something with that in a film, but it would have to be done really well. And although it'll be hard to do, it's a possibility because they keep talking about making a remake about The Crow, like the film. Like, they're not going to readapt the story of the comic, they're just going to remake the film, which I think is a terrible idea. If they do a readaptation of the comic book, then I'm all up for that. So next up on my list for this month is The Warriors. It is a great film from the 80s. It's just, everything about it is amazing. Like, yeah, it's a bit cheesy sometimes with the acting and stuff, but just seeing these guys getting framed for the murder of Cyrus and trying to get back home to Coney Island and running into all these different gangs and stuff. It's just such an exciting film, and to see all these characters played out and like they think they're so macho, but they're being really weird and stuff, and then getting killed off and seeing how they all end up going their separate ways, and you see all the different personalities coming out in each character and stuff. I just think it's a great film, and the PS2 game that came out by Rockstar years ago was probably one of my favourite PS2 games of all time. Like, that game really took the aesthetic of the film and just evolved it. Like, you get so much backstory. I think only the last quarter of the game is actually to do with the film. Everything in the game before that is all just made up for the game, but it works so well. The film is based on a book, but the book is very different from the film, but then again, it's also, I think it needed to be different to actually be a successful film. Third on my list this month is Idle Hands. I fucking love this film. It's just such a horror comedy stoner film. It's great. I remember I got this film on DVD. Like, I'd seen it beforehand. I'd rented it from a local rent shop called Paddy's, and I used to rent it all the time because originally I thought the case just looked cool, and then whenever I got home I loved the film and just wanted to rent it every week. So eventually I did a sports day in P4. Didn't do any good, of course, but whenever I got home, my parents handed me the Idle Hands DVD, and I watched that thing to death. Yeah, I have to remember as well, I was in P4 watching this film. I remember as well, like, I was sorting out my DVDs many years after that, and my mum came in and she was like, "Oh, what are you doing?" And I was like, "Oh, I'm trying to find all my kids' films to put them all in one wee section." And she was like, "Oh, what about Idle Hands?" And I was like, "That's not a kids' film. That's rated 18. And then she was like, "What? I'm such a bad mother." But in all honesty, I thought that was great because I was desensitized to all that crap by then anyway. Like, yeah, I still really enjoyed it, and it did kind of creep me out. Like, you'd be sitting with your friends watching Idle Hands 2 hours later in the dark, and be saying, "Oh shit, the hand's gonna come get me." But yeah, it's just such a great fun film, and I can still watch it to this day and probably recite every line of it. Number 4 on my list this month is Without a Paddle. Another film starring Seth Green, he was also in Idle Hands. But yeah, Without a Paddle is just such a great feel-good adventure film with three buddies reconnecting after the death of one of their other best friends who went off and become this great explorer, and they're all kind of crappy with their lives. One of them's, yeah, he's a doctor, but he's afraid of everything. The other one's a criminal burnout, basically, and the other guy is like this surfer who works a suit and tie job and he's not having any fun, but they go on this wild adventure and get stoned accidentally, running through a field that's going on fire, running away from weed farmers, getting attacked by bears and carried off thinking they're a cub, and all sorts of shit. It's just such a great fun film, and just a fun film to watch. And the last film from my list today is Detroit Rock City. Detroit Rock City is about a bunch of teenagers that they're on their last day of school and they've got this massive Kiss concert to go to. I'm pretty sure the film was actually produced by Kiss. So they want to go to this massive concert, but one of the kids' mums is like a full-on Bible basher, and she burns her tickets and sends him to boarding school. So they have to break him out of boarding school. They think they've won tickets from a radio DJ. Find out they haven't actually won the tickets, so now they're in Detroit and they need to try and find tickets. On the way there, they run into disco assholes and chop motherfuckers who steal their car and try to beat up kids, end up getting beat up by a bunch of jocks, all sneaking through backstage. It's just having sex in a confessional booth. It's just such a fun film, and the way it's directed and the shot, it's just so quick. Like, it's almost like an Edgar Wright film at times, the way it's shot. But it's just such an exciting, fun film. The soundtrack is fucking class, and I think it's a really underrated film. So yeah, that was like my random sort of 5 favorite films for this month. Next month I'll do another 5 films and just talk shit about them. Hope you enjoyed. Like, comment, and subscribe. Talk to you later.